Welcome back to the Paranormal Inc. Ohio podcast. Tonight, we're diving into a subject that has fascinated, frightened, and divided people for centuries. Tarot cards. Some believe they're simply pieces of beautifully illustrated cardboard used for self-reflection. Others believe they're tools capable of revealing hidden truths about the past, present, and future. And for many people of faith, they're viewed as spiritually dangerous or even forbidden. No matter where you stand, tarot cards have become one of the most recognizable symbols of the supernatural. You'll see them in horror movies, haunted attractions, psychic shops, television shows, and social media. They're often portrayed as mysterious objects that open doors to another world. But is that actually where they came from? Tonight, we're separating historical fact from fiction. This isn't an episode about convincing you to believe in the tarot or convincing you not to. Instead, we're going to explore what historians actually know, how tarot evolved from hundreds of years, why so many people use it today, and why it remains one of the most controversial spiritual practices in the world. Let's begin where the story actually starts. Most people assume tarot cards are thousands of years old. Some claim they originated in ancient Egypt. Others insist they were passed down by secret mystical societies. These stories are incredibly popular, but there's no historical evidence supporting them. Modern historians agree that the earliest documented tarot cards appeared in northern Italy during the early 1400s, during the Renaissance. At that time, Italy wasn't a single country, it was made up of wealthy city-states ruled by powerful families. Art, literature, architecture, and culture flourished during these periods. And wealthy nobles often commissioned elaborate works of art. Among those works were lavishly illustrated playing cards. These weren't ordinary decks, they were hand-painted masterpieces, covered in gold leaf and created specifically for wealthy families. One of the most famous surviving examples is known as the Visconti Sforza Tarot. It was commissioned by the powerful Visconti family of Milan. Sometime around the middle of the 15th century, these decks are among the oldest tarot cards known to exist today. And here's the surprising part. They weren't designed for fortune telling. They weren't used for psychics. They weren't associated with witches. They weren't connected to demons or occult rituals. They were simply used to play a card game. The game was called tarocchi. Think of it more of an elaborate version of modern trick-taking card games. Players competed using numbered suit cards along with a special group of illustrated trump cards. Those trump cards eventually became what we know as the major arcana. Images like the Fool, the Magician, the Empress, Death, the Devil, so on and so forth. Today those images are loaded with symbolic reasoning and meaning, but originally they were simply artistic illustrations used during gameplay. For nearly 300 years, tarot remained primarily a game enjoyed throughout parts of Europe. Nothing in surviving historical records suggests people were using tarot to predict the future during the earliest centuries. So where did fortune-telling come from? An answer doesn't appear until much later. Around the late 1700s, Europe experienced a growing fascination with mysticism, ancient civilizations, hidden knowledge, and secret societies. People became obsessed with discovering forgotten wisdom from the ancient world. This was also the age when Freemasonry and various occult philosophies gained popularity. It was during this period that a French writer named Antoine Corday published a theory that would change tarot forever. He claimed that tarot cards contained hidden knowledge passed down from ancient Egyptian priests. There was only one problem. He offered no historical evidence. Modern historians have found no connection between tarot and ancient Egypt. No Egyptian tarot decks have ever been discovered, no ancient writings describe tarot cards, and no archaeological evidence supports the theory. Today, scholars generally agree that Antoine's Egyptian origin story was simply speculation, not documented history. Yet his ideas spread like wildfire. People wanted to believe tarot held ancient secrets. Once that belief took hold, others began assigning symbolic meanings to each card. Soon, tarot transformed from a Renaissance card game into something entirely different. It became a tool for divination. Divination refers to practices people use in an attempt to gain insight into hidden knowledge, future events, or spiritual guidance. Tarot became one method among many, alongside astrology, palm reading, crystal gazing, and numerology. Whether those methods actually work is a matter of personal belief. Historically speaking, however, this marks the point where tarot shifted from entertainment into the realm of mysticism. That distinction is important because many people mistakenly believe tarot has always been used for fortune telling. The historical evidence simply doesn't support that. Its original purpose was a game. Its mystical reputation developed centuries later. As tarot spread throughout Europe, artists began creating new versions of the deck. Each generation added more symbolism, more interpretations, more spiritual meaning. Eventually, tarot would become closely connected with secret societies, ceremonial magic, and the occult revival of the 19th century. And that's exactly where we'll continue in part 2, because the next chapter introduced some of the most influential names in tarot history and explains how the tarot deck most people recognize today came into existence. In part 1, we explained and explored the documented origins of tarot cards. We learned that tarot didn't become as a tool for fortune telling. The earliest known decks appeared in northern Italy during the 15th century and were created as luxury playing cards for wealthy families. The idea that tarot originated in ancient Egypt is a popular story, but historians have found no evidence to support it. So if tarot wasn't originally mystical, how did it become one of the world's most famous tools for divination? That's where our story continues. By the late 1700s, Europe was in the midst of what many historians call the occult revival. Interest in hidden knowledge exploded. People became fascinated with alchemy, astrology, ceremonial magic, and ancient religions, and secret societies. There was a growing belief that forgotten civilizations possessed wisdom that modern society had lost. It was in this atmosphere that tarot began taking on an entirely new identity. As we mentioned in part 1, French writer Anton Corday claimed tarot cards were actually remnants of ancient Egyptian wisdom. Although his theory lacked historical evidence, it captured people's imagination. Not long afterward, another Frenchman would take tarot even further. His name was Jean-Baptiste Allet, better known by the name Alette, which was simply his last name spelled backward. Unlike Corte, Alette didn't just write about tarot. He actually created one of the first systems for using tarot specifically for fortune telling. He assigned meanings to individual cards, he developed reading methods, he published books explaining how many people interpret the cards. He even produced one of the first tarot decks designed specifically for divination rather than card games. In many ways, Attila helped transform tarot into the practice recognized today. Whether his interpretations were true or not wasn't something that could be historically proven. Instead, it became part of an evolving spiritual tradition. Throughout the 1800s, tarot continued changing. One organization in particular would have an enormous influence on modern tarot. It was known as the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn. Founded in England in 1888, the Golden Dawn was a secret society devoted to studying ceremonial magic, astrology, Kabbalah, alchemy, symbolism, and other esoteric traditions. Its members believed that symbols could reveal deeper spiritual truths. Tarot became one of the tools they used within their system. Rather than seeing the cards as simple pictures, members connected each card with astrology, Hebrew letters, numerology, and mystical philosophy. Many of the meanings still used in tarot books today trace directly back to the Golden Dawn's techniques and teachings. Several famous people belonged to this organization. One was the Irish poet William Butler Yeats, who later won the Nobel Prize in Literature. Another was Arthur Edward Walt, often known simply as A.E. Walt. Walt believed tarot could be redesigned to make its symbolism easier to understand. To accomplish that goal, he partnered with artist Pamela Colum Smith. In 1909, they released what would become the most influential tarot deck ever created, the Rider-Waite-Smith Tarot Deck. If you've ever seen tarot cards in a bookstore, on television, in a movie, or online, there's a very good chance you've seen artwork inspired by this deck. One reason it became so popular is because Pamela Coleman illustrated every single card. Earlier decks often showed only simple suit symbols on the numbered cards. Smith instead created detailed scenes filled with emotion, action, and symbolism. For example, the Three of Swords shows a heart pierced by three swords beneath storm clouds. Without reading a guidebook, most people immediately associate it with heartbreak, grief, or emotional pain. The Ten of Wands depicts someone struggling under the weight of 10 heavy staffs. Many interpret it as representing burdens, responsibility, or exhaustion. The artwork itself tells a story. That visual storytelling helped make tarot far more accessible. Even today, many tarot readers rely heavily on imagery rather than memorizing rigid definitions. Over the 20th century, hundreds of new tarot decks appeared. Some feature medieval artwork, others are inspired by mythology, some use animals, others focus on fantasy, nature, pop culture, or modern life. Despite their different appearances, most continue following the structure established by the Rider-Waite-Smith deck. 78 cards, 22 major arcana, 56 minor arcana. The images may change, but the overall framework remains remarkably consistent. As tarot spread throughout Europe and eventually North America, it became associated with psychics, spiritualists, New Age movements, and metaphysical bookstores. During the 20th century, tarot readings became common attractions at psychic fairs and spiritual conventions. At the same time, Hollywood played a major role in shaping public opinion. Movies also often portrayed tarot as a supernatural warning system. A mysterious stranger lays out the cards, the death card appears, moments later something terrible happens. It's an unforgettable image, but it also creates misconceptions. One of the biggest misunderstandings involves... Sorry about that, I couldn't catch my breath. Involves the death card itself. Contrary to popular belief, most tarot readers do not interpret the death card as predicting someone's physical death. Instead, it commonly symbolizes endings, transformation, change, or the closing of one chapter before another begins. The frightening image often says more about our fear of change than about death itself. The devil card is another example. Many assume it literally represents Satan. However, within traditional tarot interpretation, it usually symbolizes temptation, unhealthy attachments, addiction, fear, or allowing ourselves to become trapped by destructive behaviors. Again, interpretation depends heavily on the reader's beliefs and the symbolic system they follow. Whether someone believes these meanings reflect genuine spiritual insight or simply psychological symbolism is a matter of personal belief, not established historical fact. Today, tarot exists in several different worlds at once. Some people see it as an artistic tradition, some view it as a psychological tool for self-reflection. Others believe it offers genuine spiritual guidance, and many religious believers reject it entirely. In Part 3, we're going to look at how tarot readings are actually performed, what the cards are supposed to represent, why many people say the reading seems surprisingly accurate, and what psychology has to say about the experience. So far, we followed tarot cards from their beginnings as playing cards in Renaissance Italy to their transformation into one of the world's best-known methods of divination. And now we come to the question almost everyone wants answered. How does a tarot reading actually work? I don't know. I am not a tarot reader, I believe tarot is very real. I believe it can predict things. It can help guide you. It is a very spiritual thing. That is my personal belief. Everything I'm saying to you guys now is just evidence that I have found during research. I personally believe that tarot is very real. I believe it's powerful and it is very spiritual. And yes, it can guide you into where you need to be. And perhaps even more importantly, why do so many people walk away believing the cards describe their lives perfectly? Whether you believe tarot is a spiritual practice, a psychological tool, or simply entertainment, understanding how a reading works helps explain why tarot has remained popular for centuries. Let's begin with the deck itself. A traditional tarot deck contains 78 cards. These are divided into two main sections. The first is the major arcana. There are 22 major arcana cards, beginning with the Fool and ending with the World. Many tarot readers believe these cards represent life's major events, important lessons, or significant turning points. Some readers describe them as milestones in a person's spiritual or emotional journey. The Fool is numbered 0. Rather than representing foolishness, it often symbolizes beginnings, innocence, curiosity, or stepping into the unknown. The Magician is frequently associated with skill, confidence, and using one's abilities to create change. The High Priestess is commonly connected with intuition, mystery, and hidden knowledge. The Hermit often symbolizes solitude, reflection, and seeking wisdom. The Wheel of Fortune is usually interpreted as representing cycles, unexpected changes, and the ups and downs of life. Temperance is often linked with patience, balance, and moderation. The Star commonly represents hope after hardship. The Moon is associated with uncertainty, illusion, dreams, and emotions. The Sun generally symbolizes success, clarity, optimism, and joy. And finally, the World represents completion, fulfillment, and reaching the end of an important journey. The second half of the deck is called the Minor Arcana. These 56 cards are divided into 4 suits: cups, pentacles, swords, and wands. If those sound familiar, that's because they're similar to the suits found in ordinary playing cards. Each suit contains numbered cards from ace through 10, along with 4 court cards: page, knight, queen, and king. Or jack, if you don't want to say page. Different traditions interpret these suits slightly differently, but most readers generally agree on their themes. Cups are associated with emotions, relationships, love, compassion, and intuition. Pentacles are connected with money, work, material, possessions, finances, and physical world. Swords often represent thoughts, conflict, decisions, truth, communication, and challenges. Wands are usually linked to creativity, ambition, passion, energy, and personal growth. During a reading, the person receiving the reading, sometimes called the querent, typically shuffles the deck. Some readers ask the person to focus on a question while shuffling. Others simply encourage them to think quietly. The reader then lays the cards out in a specific pattern known as a spread. One of the simplest is the 3-card spread. The first card may represent the past, the second card the present, and the third the future, or likely direction things are heading if nothing changes. Another popular arrangement is the Celtic cross spread, which uses 10 cards. Each position represents a different aspect of the person's situation: current circumstances, obstacles, past influences, possible outcomes, personal hopes, external influences, advice, and future possibilities. It's important to understand something here. There is no single, universally accepted method for reading tarot. Different readers learn from different teachers. Some rely heavily on traditional meanings, others use intuition. Some combine tarot with astrology and numerology. Others avoid these practices entirely. Because of this, 2 experienced readers may interpret the exact same spread differently. That often surprises people. Many assume tarot works like solving a math problem, where there's one correct answer. In reality, interpretation plays a major role. That brings us to another fascinating question. Why do tarot readings often feel incredibly personal? One explanation comes from psychology. Psychologist Carl Jung believed humans naturally respond to symbols and recurring patterns known as archetypes. According to Jung, symbols like the hero, the wise old man, the mother, the trickster, or the shadow appears throughout cultures because they reflect common human experiences. Some psychologists suggest tarot imaginary taps into these universal archetypes. Instead of revealing supernatural knowledge, the cards may encourage people to reflect on their own emotions, fears, or memories. In the sense, the cards become conversation starters, not fortune tellers. Another psychological concept often discussed alongside tarot is something called the Barnum effect, sometimes called the Forer effect. This is a well-documented psychological phenomenon in which people tend to accept vague, general statements as being uniquely accurate descriptions of themselves. For example, you've experienced disappointment in your life. You sometimes doubt yourself. You want people to appreciate your true potential. Nearly everyone can relate to statements like that. When combined with symbolic imagery, people may naturally connect the cards to their own personal experiences. This doesn't necessarily mean anyone is being dishonest. It simply illustrates how human psychology works. Memory also plays a role. People tend to remember readings that seem accurate while forgetting details that never came true. This tendency is known as confirmation bias. We naturally notice information that supports our existing beliefs while overlooking information that doesn't. Scientists who study belief systems often point to confirmation bias as one of the reasons many forms of divination can appear convincing. On the other hand, many tarot readers strongly disagree with purely psychological explanations. Some believe the cards are guided by intuition. Others believe they are influenced by spiritual forces, guardian angels, ancestors, or divine guidance. Still, others say tarot doesn't predict a fixed future at all. Instead, they believe it reflects possibilities based on current choices. These beliefs vary widely among practitioners, and there is no scientific consensus supporting one spiritual explanation over another. That's an important distinction. Historically and scientifically, there is no reliable evidence demonstrating that tarot can consistently predict future events under controlled testing. Yet millions of people continue to find personal meaning, comfort, or guidance through tarot. Whether that comes from spirituality, psychology, I can't even read my own writing, guys, coincidence, or something not yet understood depends largely on one's personal worldview. And that's exactly why tarot remains such a fascinating subject. In our final part, we'll explore perhaps the most controversial aspect of tarot, why many religions, especially Christianity, warn against it. We'll examine the Bible passages often quoted, the reasons some churches believe tarot is spiritually dangerous, and why others see the cards are differently. Over the last 3 parts, we've explored the documented history of tarot cards, how they evolved from a Renaissance card game into a form of divination, and how modern tarot readings are typically performed. Now we come to the part of the story that has made tarot one of the most controversial subjects in the paranormal world: religion. For some people, tarot cards are nothing more than artwork and symbols used for self-reflection. For others, they're a genuine spiritual practice. And for many religions, particularly many Christians, tarot is viewed as something that should be completely avoided, created by the devil. Tonight we'll examine why. As always, the goal isn't to tell you what to believe. Instead, we look to the historical record and accurately represent the beliefs held by different people or different groups. One of the biggest misconceptions about tarot is that the Bible specifically mentions tarot cards, when it doesn't. The reason is simple. Tarot cards didn't exist when the books of the Bible were written. The oldest known tarot decks appeared in Italy in the 1400s. more than 1,000 years after the New Testament was completed. So if the Bible doesn't mention tarot by name, why do many Christians suppose it does? The answer lies in broader biblical teachings about divination and seeking supernatural knowledge outside of God. One of the passages most often cited is Deuteronomy 18:10-12. In that passage, the Israelites are warned not to practice divination, sorcery, witchcraft, interpret omens, consult mediums, or seek guidance from the dead. Many Christian theologians interpret tarot readings as a form of divination and therefore believe they fall under the prohibition. Another frequently referenced verse is Leviticus 19:31, which warns against turning to mediums and spiritualists. The concern expressed in these passages is not spout out or about pieces of cardboard. It's about where a person seeks spiritual guidance. Another passage often discussed is Isaiah 8:19, which asks why people would consult the dead on behalf of the living instead of seeking God. In the New Testament, Acts chapter 16 tells the story of a slave girl described as having a spirit through which she predicted the future. The Apostle Paul casts out the spirit, and the girl's owners become angry because she can no longer earn money through the fortune telling. Many Christians point to this passage as another example of the Bible discouraging practices intended to reveal hidden knowledge through supernatural means. Because of these scriptures, many churches teach that Christians should avoid tarot cards, Ouija boards, astrology, seances, and similar practices altogether. From the perspective, even if someone approaches tarot just for fun, it may still be viewed as spiritual unwise. However, Christianity is not completely uniform in how individuals understand tarot. While many conservative, Protestant, evangelical, Pentecostal, Catholic, and Orthodox leaders discourage its use, some individual Christians view tarot differently. Some people own tarot decks. Society because they appreciate the artwork. Others use the cards as prompts for prayer, meditation, or self-reflection, while rejecting any belief that the cards predict the future. These individuals generally do not represent the official teachings of their denominations, but they illustrate that personal practices can vary. Outside of Christianity, views differ as well. In many modern pagan and Wiccan traditions, tarot is often used as a spiritual or meditative tool. Some practitioners believe it helps them connect with intuition or reflect on life decisions. Others see it as symbolic rather than supernatural. In many New Age communities, tarot is treated as a method of personal growth. Rather than asking, what will happen tomorrow, the question might instead be, what am I overlooking? What patterns keep repeating in my life? What can I learn from the situation? Meanwhile, from a scientific perspective, researchers generally classify tarot as a belief-based practice rather than a demonstrated method of predicting future events. Controlled scientific studies have not shown that tarot consistently provides accurate information beyond chance. Psychologists often explain meaningful readings through concepts such as symbolism, pattern recognition, confirmation bias, and the Barnum effect, which we discussed in part 3. That brings us to the stigma surrounding tarot. For centuries, tarot has appeared in horror films, ghost stories, and television shows as a dangerous object that unleashes evil the moment someone turns over the wrong card. The death card appears, the lights flicker, a curse begins. It's a familiar scene. But historically, there's no evidence that simply owning a tarot deck causes paranormal activity. Many people who own tarot cards never use them for spiritual purposes at all. Others collect them as historical artifacts or works of art. The fear surrounding tarot often comes less from the physical cards themselves and more from the beliefs people attach to them. For believers, the cards can carry deep spiritual significance. For skeptics, they're symbolic tools. For historians, they're objects with a fascinating evolution stretching back from the 500 years. And for filmmakers, they're perfect horror movie props. So where does that leave us? The documented history tells us that tarot began as a card game. Historical evidence also shows that its association with divination developed centuries later. Religious objections arise not because of the card's historical origin, but because many faith traditions believe seeking supernatural guidance through divination is spiritually dangerous. Science has not demonstrated that tarot can reliably predict future events under controlled conditions, yet millions of people continue to find meaning, comfort, and personal insight through tarot. Whether they view it as spiritual, psychological, or symbolic, whatever your own conclusion may be, understanding the facts allows us to have informed conversations rather than relying on myths or sensational stories. Thank you for joining me for this 4-part journey into the history, symbolism, controversy, and enduring fascination surrounding tarot cards. This has been your Paranormal Inc. Ohio podcast. Until next time, keep asking questions, keep searching for the truth, and remember, sometimes the greatest mysteries aren't found in the supernatural. They're found in the stories we tell ourselves and meanings we choose to give them. Thank you guys so much for coming and checking out tonight's episode. I love each and every single one of you. I cannot tell you how much I appreciate you guys listening, wherever you listen from. And I hope you guys enjoyed tonight's episode, and you will hear from me for the next one. Bye, everyone.